Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. So there's been more development from the PwC tax leak scandal. After the podcast yesterday, there's more news that came out. Apparently, the tax leak scandal is going to be referred to the Australian police, or in this case, it appears it's going to be referred to federal police in Australia. And this is coming from Reuters. And the assistant treasurer said that they've got the Treasury looking at an investigation and what has occurred and looking at whether criminal charges should be referred to the AFP. And apparently PwC declined to comment. Other people in the Treasury have said what PwC's done is very troubling, and they're going to be looking at further steps. And this comes in light of PwC said they're going to have a former Telstra and Optus CEO leading an independent review into the leak. And this is really bad. I mean, if you have the Australian government out for blood for PwC to go after them for this, that's a problem too with these large governments and these governments that get a lot of power. If you take away their tax revenue or threaten their taxing power at all, they bring down the hammer. And I think PwC made the mistake of thinking this wasn't that big of a deal. And I think this is probably one of the biggest things that you could do wrong as an accounting firm or just any business, is get in the way of a government's power to gain revenue, because with that tax revenue, they get more power because they can do more things. And the problem with PwC is they weren't avoiding tax themselves. They were also helping other people avoid tax. And that's a big no-no when you're working with these sovereign governments. And so the Australian government is obviously positioning as if they're going to slam the hammer down on PwC. Now, what's the problem, potential problem with this that we see over and over and over again? You know, it's like the saying, you close the gate after the horse is left or whatever. I don't know the exact phrasing, but or shutting the barn after the horses run out, right? The problem is that a lot of these terrible executives have resigned, have left, aren't there anymore. Or if they're there, then that's who the Australian government should go after. The Australian government should go after any unethical person in PwC that was part of this. Go through the emails, penalize them, arrest them, and sanction them. But to penalize the whole firm of PwC for this is just a waste of time, and it's just dumb, and it doesn't work, because this has happened to PwC. This has happened to all the big four accounting firms. They've all done this, and they all get penalized as a firm, and the individual partners inside don't learn anything. You have to penalize the partners that were involved in this. They have to be the ones that face the penalties. They have to go to jail. They have to pay back their compensation. This CEO of PwC that left and resigned, you have to go after that guy's pension. Go after whatever you need to with regards to that. Make him go through a painful process. Don't put PwC through the process. I mean, they're going to go through the process. There's no doubt about that. But the problem is that the Australian government wants to cut PwC off from government contracts. They want to fine them into oblivion, I'm sure. And the problem is there's people that work at PwC, a lot of people, and those are good jobs in Australia, and you don't really want to lose those. But you do need to go after this unethical behavior. But at the big four accounting firms, this is common with partners. And that's why I think you have to nail the PwC partners here. And you go out, you find out as much about them as possible. And maybe you find PwC, $10 million, something like that. But these partners, you come up with what's reasonable, of how much of however many penalties, however long they need to go in prison, obviously within the law, but they're the ones that need to get penalized, and their names need to get put up in neon lights, because that's what's going to deter the future people from doing this, and it needs to be substantial. This isn't just in Australia; it's everywhere. It's a lot of these executives just get away with it. There's partners and stuff that get sanctioned and their careers ruined, but people don't learn, and it's just you have to go after them. It has to be significant, and then I think the thing you do as far as training after this, where the government's gonna put more regulations, they're gonna require more training, but the training that you need to do is to talk about the penalties that these partners faced, the stiff penalties, and teach them about this case, not some generic ethical training. Because if you're in the big four accounting firms, you take those over and over and over again, and it's just so boring. But if you get to the specifics, if you highlight what the people did, and you need to talk about how a lot of people ignored this, a lot of senior executives ignored this and let it pass. And I think that's important for people in the big four. It's important for them to see how these people operate and how unethical they are, because they'll say one thing in the media and on LinkedIn, but behind these scenes, these people are completely different, and they're cutthroat, and they just lack ethics. And it's not because they don't know what's right and wrong. It's just that they don't care. And I just feel bad for people working at PwC and the big four who do the right thing, who try to do the right thing. They're not rewarded, and they suffer the penalties of these idiots that go out and do this stuff. This stuff is stupid. This is day one accounting. Like, you don't have to be a partner. You don't have to be a professor in accounting ethics. This is common sense stuff. These partners these partners that are supposed to be the best of the firm, that have signed off on 5 million ethical agreements, confidentiality agreements, and they still committed these crimes and this unethical behavior. These are the people that should suffer. And that's what I would encourage the Australian government to go after, and not just tear PwC down to nothing. Because to say it's all due to a firm is wrong, and to label everybody in that firm as one thing is wrong as well. And I think that them referring it to criminal matter is correct, but to try and label PwC as a whole as corrupt, I think is incorrect. And what are they gonna do to PwC as a firm? They're gonna put him in jail? No, you can't. They could do something like happened to Arthur Andersen in the U.S., where they give him a death penalty, but I don't think they're gonna do that either. But I don't think they should do that. I don't think they should keep them from getting government contracts either. I know people are out there for blood, but I don't think that's good, because a lot of people will lose their jobs. And I don't think that's good either, especially the people that work hard and are good and ethical. And that's where I see the problem at, and that's where I see the people who listen to this podcast being adversely impacted. But they do need to go after these partners. I say find every single one, especially the ones that are in the executive leadership and were on these emails and saw all this happening and did nothing. That's who you make an example of, and that's who you go after. But we'll keep an eye on this and the potential implications for PwC as it comes about. But that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe and check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.